Welcome to the Being Known podcast with my friends, Dr. Curt Thompson and Pepper Sweeney.
And our friend,
Amy Chella. Right on.
We are here to discover and explore what it means to be truly known. Hey, guys.
Amy.
Amy.
Amy's in the house.
She is in the house for the entire episode. I'm thrilled. It's great that we get the chance to have this conversation together. It's awesome.
Indeed.
So we're going to dive right in, right?
Go. Yeah, dive.
Yeah.
So recently, and we've been waiting to have this conversation together with our Being Known people. But recently you guys went on a trip to El Salvador. And now, while El Salvador has some great surfing spots, I think the story about how you guys ended up there is a different one. And I would love to hear it.
Yeah, well, it does. And Pepper went to go surfing, and I was tasked with carrying his board.
Someone's got to.
Yeah. It needed a lot of wax, and you gotta,
And if you're gonna, and like when you're the most beautiful man in the world, you need others to help you do your work, and that's what I was there to do.
Yes, I'm the big
interpersonal,
kahuna.
right? The interpersonal neurobiology of surfing.
Yes,
that's what we were there to do.
Not at all, actually. Yeah. What we were there for was Compassion International, who last season of the Being Known podcast, we gave an opportunity for people to give to Compassion International. It's an organization that Curt and Phyllis have been given to for years. Nell and I have in the past, and we know their work. We love their work, but we've never really seen their work, boots on the ground, having the opportunity to see what's really happening. And they invited Curt and I to come and see what they're doing in El Salvador. And so that's how we made the trip. That's how we got down there.
Yeah. And also it's fitting that it is connected to this particular season that we are recording on what it means for us to put ourselves in the path of oncoming beauty, which we hope to talk a little bit about today in our interview.
Yes. Well, and that we are going to get to that. And I'm sure with the two of you, there were some profound moments, and I'd love to hear those, or a couple of them.
We got lost once, Curt and I, walking in the morning on the way to try to find a cup of coffee in downtown.
Like lost.
Yes. Well, yeah, we couldn't find, we didn't know where we were, and we didn't know where we were going. So I guess that constitutes loss. But we made it back okay. But there were, in all seriousness, so many profound moments, and getting to go there with this team was amazing, and having the opportunity to, people inviting us into their homes, I think was one of the most profound things for me. We went to several homes up in the very remote mountains outside of San Salvador, and people they loved having us in their homes. It was they were so welcoming, and just to get the opportunity to see a different part of the world, how people live differently, and then the other thing that I would say is one of the most profound things for me was everything was centered around the church. Everything was centered around the church, and the church was so much to so many. Like, it wasn't just something that people sort of went to on a Sunday, or, it was integrated. It is integrated in every aspect of their lives.
Yeah. Well, I one of the things the compassion is committed to serving people who are at or below the poverty level. And when you're encountering people who are living in that space, you're encountering people for whom the church is often the difference between life and death. Unlike me, who's got hundreds of accessories in his life, that can be a substitute for Jesus, such that my life just where Jesus becomes, just one more accessory. I have what I need, and then I'll take Jesus too. Thank you very much. This was a situation in which I love that boots on the ground, Pepper, as you said, you're walking into a space where I think so many times we heard people talk about their encounter with Jesus and their experience of the church, and that this was giving them life in very practical, tangible ways.
And very, very few times did we hear the word Compassion International. Right. They aren't
Talk
leading with their
integrated.
brand at all. And they don't send employees from the States to these remote places, to these places. It's all people that are living there, that are part of the community. And it's all about the local church. It's all about funding the local church so that they can do all the things. Yeah. Do the work.
Yeah. Compassion's tagline is that they are Christ-centered, child-focused, church-driven.
Yeah,
I love that. And one of the cool things for me was even the way the trip was planned. We arrive on a Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we had encounters with 3 different projects, 3 different communities.
Mm-hmm.
And these different projects were arranged for us to see in order of the developmental stages of the people that they were ministering to.
Oh, wow.
And so Wednesday is with a mother and child project that is one of Compassion's newer initiatives, called a survival program, wherein which they're acknowledging that if they literally are providing funding for the church to provide service that is making the difference between life and death for these moms and for their children. And for me, I was so moved by this, watching how, as they were supporting young mothers in these spaces, poverty, in areas of poverty, they were doing fundamental attachment work with these moms. And you hear the moms talking about the difference that it's making for the moms, but then also obviously for their kids, for their children. And these will be differences that will change the trajectory of these newborns, infants, toddlers forever. It will change the trajectory. And then on Thursday, we went to a project that was ministering to elementary school kids. And then on Friday to a project that's been around for 20 plus years, that's ministering to older teens and young adults.
Yeah. Okay. See, this totally, I want you to say more, Curt, because it's totally, I was curious about how you both saw being known come into play. Is this twofold? Being known come into play, and then how you, in light of this season's theme, how did you see and encounter beauty? Which much of what you just said is part of that.
Yeah. Well, I think without them using this kind of language, I think that the work that they are doing is that they are giving these mothers and children and, elementary and high school and young adult kids the opportunity to be deeply known. They're not just throwing stuff at them. They're not just throwing material at them. They are engaging with them relationally. They are giving them the experience of being seen, soothed, safe, secure, not just relationally, but in very practical ways. The way they are creating spaces for them, even in the physical plants of the spaces that they're using. Like the ping pong matches that were breaking out. Right, where they're doing and pickleball that they're starting to play, all these things that they're so they giving people the opportunity to be deeply known in such a way that is a difference between life and death, because these kids are going on to do, I forget what night, Thursday night was it, when we Thursday night when we, I don't know, Friday, whatever, when we sat with the 4-piece little stringed,
Yep. Yeah.
was it string quartet or quintet? I forget. These are kids who, apart from this program, they're not going to be playing the cello.
No. And after their concert, a couple of them, they would go to, they sat and had a meal with us, right? And the young lady who sat at my table was in college, had a scholarship through Compassion, through the program, is in college to be a teacher, and she's already teaching. She had an incident where she teaches at a private Christian school, and she had an incident where a student had come in and had some bruises, and there was some obvious abuse that was happening. So she had to report it because it's her job. She reports it, but then the student, wasn't going to have the tuition to come to school anymore. So this young girl is paying now for this student's tuition. Others of them are sponsoring kids through Compassion. Kids that have come through the program are sponsoring, and they're all still very involved in the church and the programs and all that to help the youth coming up. I mean, yeah, just beautiful, just beautiful.
So when you talk about beauty emerging out of places that at first glance, you appear to be in no way a space from which beauty would ever emerge. This is living, breathing experience of this, and it's not a walk in the park. This takes a lot of hard work. They are in hard places. This requires, something like on Friday, the pastor and his wife, who I think between the two of them have enough energy to oh my gosh, probably bring enough power to a small to medium sized city. But what are they doing? I mean, they are in this space where they've been for 20 years.
Yep. In
this part of San Salvador. These are people who probably could have gone anywhere. I mean, given their skill sets and their capacity, and they are in this space, and they are making the difference for literally dozens of children who are coming up through their ranks. And that's beauty on full display. And it is beauty that takes work. In this season, we've talked about this notion of how much work is required to cultivate and curate the beauty that we long to see. And and the whole time, to Pepper's point, compassion is if you don't know the compassion's in the room, you would never know the compassion's in the room.
Yeah. I'll say the only time that it was apparent is when we got to go to one of the kids' houses, and they were so excited to show us the letters that they've gotten from their sponsors. I mean, I've sponsored kids, and I've never thought you don't realize that. I mean, that was it was like gold. It was like they were so proud of, and wanted to share who their sponsor families are and all that kind of stuff. That was really, really, really neat. And like the pastor and his wife were talking about, they built this like wonderland for these kids out of these 2 abandoned houses. I can't even explain to you how, like, they had one room that was a grocery store, another room that was a workshop, one for little.
Oh my gosh, for play.
And the pastor, he built every piece of furniture. I mean, and it was amazing. And it's all his wife's vision and imagination and creativity. I mean, the 2 of them, they were dynamos, both of them. I can't say, and without the help of Compassion, that wouldn't be able to happen,
right?
Because they wouldn't be able to have the resources to make any of this stuff happen. So,
right. She had those dreams, and they were able to be realized because
exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I also I want to say I'm really grateful to Lori at Compassion for thinking about us and bringing us on board, and Lori Robertson, and I'm aware that after Phyllis and I have supported kids for 25 years there, I mean, through compassion, and it makes a difference to have been in that space. It makes a difference, and so I'm grateful that compassion is thinking to do this, to invite people to come along on the journey, and to meet people. And in El Salvador at the moment, in particular, they're not only are they dealing with poverty, they also have a long history of political challenges. And even now, they're in the middle of yet another wave of political challenge for which people in the church are wrestling. And so that also has its own particular influence on the situation in which people are trying to follow Jesus, being faithful to him, while at the same time, there are just lots of layers of complexity that make living in that space not the easiest to do. And so that compassion would bring us in the middle, such that we can see everything. Well, I mean, not everything, but so we get to see lots of different things. So there's not just there's not just one narrative. There's not just compassion's narrative. Compassion. I mean, the leaders were like, please ask as many questions as you want. If you've got concerns about what we're doing, if you've got concerns about the program, the country, anything, ask like an open book.
Yeah, I appreciated that so much. You never know what you don't know going into a situation like this. What are we going to see? What are they hiding? Nothing. Right. They weren't hiding anything from us. I mean, they were ready for any hard questions that we had. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm also aware. I'm blanking right now. The current president of Compassion, Jimmy.
Yeah.
We got to find his name.
Well, pronouns are the first thing to go, Curt.
And then last names.
What's the second thing?
Yeah.
Because I think I'm into the first thing.
Jimmy is came up through Compassion in El Salvador. He was a recipient of Compassion's work.
Oh my gosh!
In El Salvador.
I was looking at the name.
And I had the opportunity to share a stage with him about a year ago.
So it's Santiago Jimmy Herberto Melado.
Yeah. I mean, at least at the conference, he was introduced as Jimmy Melado, and kind, thoughtful, and a person who is living, breathing. He wants to be a conduit of all that he has been a recipient of, and I was reminded, like, my goodness, I want to be more attuned to what has been granted to me, such that my posture would not be to hoard that, but to give it away, but to be increasingly generous. All these program directors, the degree of generosity of their spirit, of their time, of their energy, of their sense that we have been called by the King to do this work.
Because we've all been brought up in a sense, right? And so we don't want to forget.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think, just beauty at every turn in terms of how, we're seeing how the stories of so many people are being transformed by the love of Jesus as it is being implemented in the ways that compassion does it, which I would say is the way of humility.
Yeah.
Right. There's no, there's no colonialism going on. I mean, they're not coming in and saying, here, we're going to do it. No, we want to do what we can do. Please help us understand how we can be helped. It's really beautiful.
Indeed. Yeah.
Well, so you guys are home now. You're no longer in El Salvador. So being on this side of the trip, is there a significant takeaway, or is there a way that it has changed you? Curt, you spoke a little bit to that right just now about wanting to remember and not hoard.
Yeah, I'll say the day that we were to fly to El Salvador, I always get to the airport early because I'm.
That's how you roll.
Yes, that's how I roll. And I always stop at the Starbucks and I get a cup of coffee and I go and I sit and read or whatever. You know, I mean, I'd rather do that than be worried about missing my flight.
Mm-hmm.
So I go into Starbucks, wait in line, a little irritated that I'm waiting in line so long for my coffee.
Because, well, dude, what time was your flight?
It was early.
Right.
It was
like,
it was
why
an
are
early
all these
flight.
like why are all these people
Why aren't these people
here
at home?
at this time of day?
Yeah.
Right.
So it's my turn and I get up there and I usually order a grande dark roast with heavy whipping cream. That's my coffee, right? So I order it. She said, "We have no dairy products."
Mm-hmm.
I was so put out by the fact that I had to drink coffee, black coffee.
By
Just
6 a.m. By 6 a.m. they have no dairy
They have
products.
no dairy products. It was, I forget what the reason was. It was a holiday weekend or something. I can't
You
remember.
forgot because you
It was
didn't care.
Labor Day weekend.
It was Labor Day weekend and they didn't get a delivery or something. And so anyway, I was so put out by that. And then we go and experience a week in El Salvador. And I think my priorities could be a little off. And I wonder how long it's going to last. I wonder how long I'm going to be thinking, when's the next time I'm going to be angry or upset at something that's trivial and, you know, I don't need to be. And I'm not, yeah. So all of that to say that I think just experiencing a different way that people live that I wouldn't have any other opportunity to experience has probably opened my eyes up a little bit to my own sort of entitlements, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I was really, I think one of the things I also noticed, Pepper, was your sense of entitlement. And I was really glad that you were able to be on that trip.
That
Thank
took
you.
a while.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, it's like with every turn. So, you know, Compassion has learned that one of the ways you make it possible for your team that you're taking to enter into the work of being out in these projects during the day is that they make sure that you're in a hotel that's pretty nice. Because for a lot of people, they're seeing stuff for the very first time that they haven't seen, and it's helpful and important for them to be in a space where they can process that, think about that, so forth. So, and it's all, and I was aware of this cadence of coming back into a hotel space that felt like, I mean, this would be a high-end hotel in the U.S. I mean, it was it was a lovely hotel space. If by U.S. standards, it would have been a nice space to be. But then we enter, and so I just became aware of like, wow. Too, my sense of entitlement, my sense of just the automatic expected ease with which my life should go.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the temptation to just like feel bad about that, to feel so ashamed of it that you know, you feel like, well, either there's nothing I can do about it, I'm so overwhelmed by it, I can't do it, or on the other hand, I feel like you know, I'm gonna do everything I possibly can. And so I think for me, part of the challenge is coming back here and wanting to do the work of being genuinely a person of humility, genuinely a person of good stewardship. And so I think, like, you know, even frankly, even having this conversation is a helpful reminder. I don't want to forget my experience. That's the thing. To your point, Pepper, like, when am I gonna go back
Right.
to that space, I
Yeah.
don't want to forget what I've
Yeah.
experienced.
And I think the other part of it is I just want to get kids sponsored.
Yeah,
I
right
just
on.
want to
My
get kids
gosh.
sponsored.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
we witnessed, there was a young lady who, I guess she was high school age, and she did not have a sponsor.
Hmm.
And somebody on our team sponsored her. And
Uh-huh.
like while we were
In the
there,
moment. Yeah.
we had been to this girl's house and heard her story, which was incredible. Um, and then to see the tears that of she got to meet her sponsor, like the person that was going to sponsor her, and she was just like, why do you want to sponsor me? Why would you want to sponsor me? And it was just, yeah, it was just
Hmm.
incredible. This is a girl that had been at one point outside of her home hit by a car, and she was in a Bible classes at the time, so the whole classes would come to her home because she was bedridden for a while, and they would do the classes in her home. And yeah, and that,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
an
Yeah.
incredible family. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So speaking of you guys being home, we posted a video on social media about the trip. And then somebody commented and said, I'm pretty sure these two are going to end up in jail with some kind of shenanigan. So were you
Well,
able, you're home. So did you avoid
can
jail?
we just say, yeah, the two of us, but like mostly because I happened to be there when Pepper was doing whatever Pepper was doing. I mean, I'm like,
He would be
I'm
the
in jail
instigator.
I'm in jail by association, not because, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm with him.
we were able to stay out of jail,
yeah,
thankfully, but
yeah.
there were, certainly I'm sure some shenanigans. And I mean, in the midst of this trip and seeing the things that we saw, there was a lot of joy
Hmm,
and a
Mhm,
lot of
hmm,
beauty,
mhm.
and
hmm,
we of course had a lot of laughter,
hmm,
and
hmm,
we met some amazing people. And
hmm.
but it's nice that uh that our listeners, it's nice to be known by our listeners, that they
Hmm.
they would
Yes, it
they would
is.
automatically question whether or not we got thrown in jail.
It is. We were able to stay out of jail. And so apparently we're going to have to find another trip with Compassion to go on so that we can see if we can test the
Yes.
waters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently the
Yeah.
trip isn't complete unless Pepper and Curt
Jail
find
time.
themselves in real trouble.
Yeah, getting lost on the way to try to find a cup of coffee was the most trouble that we got into.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can do better. All right.
That's
So
right.
how do we, because we get to be involved. We've been involved. You guys went on the trip. But how do we, our being known crew, get involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. I we we, like we were saying, we would love to have get as many of these kids sponsored as we possibly can. We want to
Mhm.
offer that opportunity to you all, so that, how cool would it be if this community of
Hmm.
listeners who were all on this journey together, trying to, do this work and be more known, and that we could come together and do something, like step out and really do something that would
Mhm.
make a huge impact, in in the world. And the way that we can do that is to go to compassion.com/known. That's COMPASSION.com/KNOWN. And for $43 a month, you can sponsor a child. And when you go to this site, you'll see the actual kids, the actual pictures of the kids that are in El Salvador. We are focusing on El Salvador because that's where we've seen the work, but they do this work all over the world. If you have a specific proclivity to another country that you have a connection to or something, and you want to sponsor a child there, you can still do that through compassion.com/known. But we happen to be just going after these kids in El Salvador.
Mhm.
And so, I just want to encourage you all to take a step out.
Mhm.
And when you do, be sure to write them letters,
Mhm.
Mm.
because you really are changing lives. You really are changing lives and impacting lives in ways that, that people that sponsor don't even understand, I don't think.
Right. Right. Yeah. We in this space we've been talking at different places about moving from imagination to incarnation. This idea that we want to become more aware of an embodied experience. And I think, Pep, when you and I were there, I was having that experience. I mean, for over 25 years, we've sponsored children through compassion, and I'm aware of this. We get the letters. Phyllis writes the letters. We get her picture over time. We get that. There was nothing to compare to being in that space where you're listening to the stories of children. Like, I remember one young older teenager, when asked on that Friday, how would you describe your life compared to your friends who haven't had this opportunity to be involved in this church program that you've been part of? And he said, well, I think that if I didn't have this encounter with Jesus and with the church, I would probably either be dead or in jail. Those are his words. Yeah. And for me to hear a real kid say this to us, I would say that Pepper and I want to be an extension of those voices that gets them one step closer to an embodied presence, to you, our listeners, to invite you to be curious about where that $43 a month can come from. We want to be able to sponsor as many kids as we can.
Yeah.
And we're not just trying to run up numbers. We're saying we want to be the gospel. We want to be beauty coming to find these kids where nobody else does. And there you have it.
I've got to share. So I went to compassion.com/known, and one of the first little girls, not the first, but her name was Abigail, which is the name of one of my nieces. So I'm like, of course I want Abigail. So I click it, and her birthday is July 11th, which is one of my nephew's birthdays. So I'm like, so I got her.
It's a sign. Oh, that's awesome.
It's a sign. Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to, I'm very grateful to Compassion for the work they do, and for allowing us to have this experience, and for allowing us to give you all the opportunity to join in on this. That's, I'm just grateful.
Right on. Right on.
So we have an artistic offering to talk about, right, guys?
Yes, we do. And
Jollity.
What'd you say?
I just had to say the word jollity.
She said jollity. We're getting used to this word.
We are getting used to this word.
For
10 years, I have misread and mispronounced this word as jollity.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And this morning, Amy was my corrective angel.
And the offering that hopefully you all have had an opportunity to listen to last week, over the course of this week, is Jupiter, Bringer of Jollity by Gustav Holst. Did I say it wrong? Curt, you're looking like I said something wrong.
Is it Bringer or is it Bearer?
I thought it was Bringer.
Oh, no. It is. It's Bringer.
Bringer of Jollity.
Bringer of Jollity.
Which Bringer works in a lot of ways.
I think Beringer's a beautiful, I think it's a beautiful word. It's a beautiful word.
It is.
And we can just call it Bringer of Jollity. No, it's the Bringer of Jollity.
Of Jollity. Yeah. I tiptoe through the minefield of the English language on a daily basis, but I did have the opportunity.
It's your nascent attempts to do so.
It is. Yes. Thank you for that. So Gustav Holst was a composer. He actually started off as a musician. He was a trombone player. That's how he paid his bills for a long time, playing the trombone. And he was a composer in training at the Royal College of Music. While he was there, he developed a lifelong friendship with Ralph Vaughan Williams, who was another composer. And they had this relationship that I loved reading about, because they really even kind of went against the rules and critiqued one another's work and really try to sharpen one another in their composing skills throughout their whole lives. And so Holst became a teacher to pay the bills for a long time, and he was evidently an excellent teacher. And then he spends a long time writing. He gets into astrology actually, and spends a long time writing this piece, The Planets. And particularly Jupiter is the one that we're spending time with today, and hopefully you've had the chance to listen to it. It's an incredibly beautiful piece, and there's a section of it, the Thaxt, it's called, section of it, from like 3 minutes, just under 3 minute mark, to like the 5 minute mark. That would probably be familiar to you if you didn't even know it was Jupiter, because it's also been that particular segment of the piece has been used as music for a couple of hymns. And some people say that section, I've read that section of music is, some people consider it some of the most beautiful music ever written.
Wow.
Yeah. And it is sort of a, I don't know. I find that it's transformative, not transform. I don't know. I feel like when I've listened to this, especially over the last couple of weeks, and I had the opportunity to hear it performed live once. It's the kind of music that can, if you allow it, can really take you away, can really let your mind go. Yeah.
Right. We have on multiple occasions used this when I've been at conferences and presentations, inviting the audience to stand and to, with outstretched arms, just simply be present, and then we will play that 3 minute segment between about the 3:09 mark and about the 6 minute mark. It's this way of encountering not just music, but allowing the music to enable us to encounter ourselves and to encounter each other. And again, it's another example of how one person's really hard work, and like Holst doesn't just write this overnight. This takes a lot of hard work, not unlike compassion, a lot of hard work. And long after that one composer is no longer alive, this artifact of beauty continues to bring hope, bring expansion, bring beauty, bring goodness, bring joy, bring creativity into a world where it's not hard to look around and find a lot of carnage. And when we are willing to practice listening to this in an embodied way, we all have people listen to this segment after allowing their hands to remain raised, and then we'll invite them to just name what your experience has been. Not what do you think about the music, but what is happening to you as a result of this. And this is the gospel. That the gospel is coming to bring beauty and integration, but also to heal parts of us that we didn't know about, and to transform us. It also places demands on us, as we've said in previous episodes, to become a person of greater love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, all of which also takes work. That kind of beauty, as we like to say, the most durable beauty in the world takes the longest time to create. And this becomes a piece that we can, if we're willing to submit ourselves to it in a practiced way, we begin to see things differently when we walk out our front door and off our front porch every morning.
Well said. And you talked about how it still, this, first of all, this piece made him kind of famous. And he didn't like that at all. He did not like being, that bothered him a lot. But anyway, what I wanted to say was, when you said that it still spurs creativity today, years after it was written, a composer's been dead for years. And there's the sweetest little Australian cartoon called Bluey, and they used this song in an episode. It was season 2, episode 26, and I think it's worth watching. It was really sweet. I found this as I was doing research on the piece, and it's so creative what they did, and the music obviously spurred the whole creativity of this piece. And it's a children's cartoon, but couldn't be any sweeter. Yeah,
that's great.
Well, and I will say that, like, in the past couple of weeks, even like driving in my car and listening to the piece, I was able to settle into it with, like, just to enjoy it. It's very playful, it's celebratory, and it was just like, I just found myself smiling and feeling joy, and not like sometimes we try to figure things out, but it was just like, oh my gosh. And then the other thing that struck me is Jupiter, we can oftentimes see it with the naked eye. And I thought, we can see it. We can see beauty and goodness. And it does take work, but with work, we can see it, and it unfolds, and it's fabulous.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for today. This was terrific. Thanks, Amy, for leading this conversation. You did a great job. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. And our next opportunity.
Yes.
Our next opportunity.
Artistic offering.
Well, we will be live. Yes, together. And the artistic offering is
David Wilcox.
How did you find
me? How did you find me here?
Yeah. It's a beautiful song.
You all can find this on YouTube, a number of places.
From
the same album, an album by the same title. How did you find me here?
Yeah.
And it says in one song, says so many things about what our podcast has been about, and about what this season in particular is about. Yep. So give it a listen and join us live on the 26th of October, Thursday evening, McLean Presbyterian Church.
Unfortunately, by the time this airs, I'm not sure. Will there still be opportunity? Yeah.
No.
We will have already done it.
But you can listen to it.
Yes.
Yeah. There you go.
So join us by listening.
Yes.
All right, guys.
All right. Love you.
Love you.
We'll see you.
This podcast is produced by Curt Thompson, Pepper Sweeney, and myself, Amy Chella. Audio production and editing is by Keaton Simons. Video production and editing is done by Mark Gould. If you'd like to connect with us, you can find us on social media at Being Known Pod. If you like this podcast, tell a friend. If you love this podcast, tell everyone you know. And please like, rate, and review wherever you listen. Be well, be known.